Welcome to the George Mokoena Show. My name is George Mokoena. I am your host, and this is a place where we're going to speak about some of the bigger stories that have happened in our football. I'll take you through my thoughts, and as always, feel free to jump into the comments and tell me what you think about whatever it is I am going to talk about. Also, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to follow, and don't forget to share this to everybody that you know. Let's get into it. Now, one of the biggest stories that have come out of South African football over the past week is the story that our president, Yama 2000s, Mofokeng, is wanted by Barcelona's B team, Barcelona Athletic, as they call it that side. This story has come that they're looking for him, they're scouting him, and they've asked people like Pablo Franco Martin, a Spaniard who had worked for him, Amazulu, was the head coach of Amazulu, was in the South African market, so they reached out to him to ask about this player, what he thinks of him, and allegedly, Martin has given a glowing recommendation for Mofokeng to go over that side, which means that we might be seeing Mofokeng make the jump to Spain. Now, I want to clarify a few things about the B team, right? They don't have a reserve league that side, so they don't have a DDC type setup where it's those teams separately playing against themselves. They have more of an M Tigers and Sundowns type setup. I know that relationship is not there anymore, but it's the best comparison to make. They have an M Tigers, Mamelodi Sundowns type relationship where the reserve teams that side play in the lower league. So you have to be at least one league below the main one, right? And they're not allowed to play in the Copa del Rey. All of the teams have it. Osasuna, Celta Vigo, famously Real Madrid has Real Madrid Castilla. That is where coaches like Coach Zidane refined himself before getting that first team shot. It's produced a bunch of players, the Barcelona one. When we look at your Messis, your Yamals have come through that system. A bunch of players, especially when you transition from La Masia into the first team, usually those who aren't talented enough to go directly into the first team play in the B team in order for them to maybe prove that they can go into the first team. We've seen quite a few of them, Abo Pojane, Abo Pedro, and all those guys making it from that team into the first team. But yeah, also it's a place where, man, you can actually get some competition and play. Now, there's two ways to look at this story. The first way I'm gonna touch on is the more negative side, which is asking questions about the move itself. The obvious question is, if this team is taking part in the third division of Spain, what type of quality and development can happen there? How far is it away from an Orlando Pirates that's playing in the Champions League? Orlando Pirates can give Mofokeng first team minutes. But also, how does it compare to the other teams in Europe? So if you look at Campbell, who's playing in Belgium for Club Brugge's development team, Club Next, right? What does that difference look like? You know, how much bigger would it be for Mofokeng to be playing either for the reserve teams of others? If you look at England, for example, their reserve teams, their under-23s play frequently. They get a lot of exposure. You even get to play against some of the bigger players because as they recover and as they come back into the team, some of them are serving suspensions, you get to play and interact with those guys. So what is the difference there in going to a reserve league, say in England, for example? But also, what is the difference between Barcelona B and then if you look at a league like Portugal, if you look at a league like the Netherlands, if you look at some of those leagues where we've seen South African players go and be good and be great and get first team opportunities. For example, Percy Tau was playing for Club Brugge on his way to Brighton Hove. Brighton Hove had signed him, but part of his work permit things was that he had to play in Belgium. He got to play in the Champions League. He got to play for some of the top managers. Currently, the manager of Bayern Munich is Vincent Kompany, right? He got that type of exposure. Will you get that type of exposure from the third division in Spain, right? And also, is it not too late for him as a 20-year-old foreigner to be moving into the reserve side of Barcelona? Where when you get there, you've obviously got the guys who are established in that reserve side, maybe not good enough to make it into the first team, but they're good enough to be in that team and stay there. But then also, you are competing with La Masia graduates who are younger. Abo Lamine Yamal got their chances in Athletic very young, 14, 15. Now you see where he's playing in the first team. Abu Messi, when they passed through these teams, you could see that they were ready far earlier. And if we believe that Mofokeng is not the finished article, if we believe that Mofokeng still needs some development and to learn things, does it help putting him in a situation where he's competing with youngsters who are maybe far along their development chain, number one, but then number two are Spanish. We know about Catalans, we know about Catalonia, we know how they deal with these players and how they love their own. Is it a good environment to send Mofokeng in? That, of course, would be the more negative outlook on this story. The more positive outlook is...
Sorry to interrupt the video that I'm sure you're enjoying, but I just wanted to say thank you for all of the support that you guys have shown me and my Overthinking Football platform. I'm a one-man band that's doing all of this, and I really do enjoy the comments about how, you know, Supersport needs to come fetch me and SABC and all of that stuff. And I think it speaks to the quality of the content, but also the amount of effort that I put in. So I just wanted to say thank you. But the truth is that Abu Supersport and all of those guys, yes, we're competing with them, but it's a completely different place. The sponsors are looking for former players, and to be honest with you, running some of these things is getting so difficult, and things have changed at home. So financially, it's a whole different world. So I wanted to try something new and come to the overthinkers, the people who watch the content, and say it would be incredible if you guys could contribute monthly towards the platform, towards keeping my lights on, but also making sure that all of the crazy things that I want to do, that I want to take Supersport on with, I can actually do. And just for 20 Rand every month, I think that would be an incredible contribution if you can make it. It may sound like a little, but if we can get a lot of people behind it, then we'll be able to carry on doing what I do. I'll be able to carry on giving you the content and also expanding it, because we don't have shows like this, and us content creators need help from our audiences. So I just came here to ask you if you can. Here is the account number that you guys can use in order to contribute. And I think, yeah, I'd be very grateful if you would. But anyway, let's get back to the video. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Guys, if I am moving to Europe to go play in Europe, the steps in between me and a top league as a South African are so much. You look at Percy Tau and how many years it took him to even get back into the Brighton Hove team, or get into the Brighton Hove team. And by the time that was done, they had changed coaches, they didn't want him, and Jiggy Jiggy finds himself playing in Egypt. You've seen others going to Romania, others going to those type of countries and getting lost in all of that, in all of the, you know, the steps, the requirements for you to then try and make it into a top league from there. We've seen that happen. So maybe he bypasses all of this by going to the B team of one of the best teams in the world. Going to that B team, and maybe that is one step to get there instead of 7 steps to maybe sort of get there with the years that are ticking by. It also answers the question that if he is 20 years old, then maybe it is too late. Why would he go to Europe to go take 10 steps when maybe he's 3 away? Not to mention that, but imagine what this does for the people who are looking at you. If I'm playing for Barcelona's B team and I'm a star player there, I may not make it into Barcelona's A team, I may not make it to Real Madrid or whoever, but I may be taken by some of the smaller squads, some of the smaller teams that side, or Celta Vigo and those teams where Abu Payne played, Abu Celta Vigo, where I can play La Liga football maybe the following season. So maybe he's 21, he's playing La Liga football for a mid-table La Liga team. I think that is a very good jump, and that looks very good on Mofokeng going forward. Not to mention the fact that this is Barcelona B. So any chances of development will be heightened because you're playing for one of the best development teams, with the best development players, with the best development coaches and environment for a player to develop. And again, maybe he doesn't make it into the Barcelona A team, but where do you go? You can go very far from there. Imagine learning or having to be in an environment where you've got tiki-taka and all of those things, and the Johan Cruyff method and the history of Abu Pep and all of that feeds throughout that team. and you're able to get better and improve and learn, I think this could be an incredible move for Mofokeng. But him and his representatives will have to sit down and assess. There were rumors of Abo Wolves, which would be a similar-ish situation in a bigger league, in a bigger league that has more opportunities. You know, the championship is far different to the third division or the second division in Spain. Playing for a lesser team like Wolves in the English Premiership is already an incredible step that you could take and actually be even further up the chain, right? In terms of opportunities, in terms of teams looking at you, in terms of growth. So that's going to be a very interesting thing with Mofokeng. But I'll tell you more as the story develops. Hopefully he gets his move, man. You don't want him to be stuck here, grow a big head, become complacent, maybe not improve as he would have, and then finally hit the ground running when his Temba's one his age or Tito's age, you know, when they started getting things running. So let's see how that's going to pan out for him. Like I say, the earlier the move, the better for the boys, because even if you fail, rather you fail as a 22-year-old who still has a career in front of him than to hedge your bets, and now you're playing in Israel. No disrespect to Israel, but now you're playing in those type of countries where you're not going to get chances to go further. So that is the Mofokeng story. The next story I want to touch on is a story about Gaston Sirino. There are rumors, and I'd like to highlight that these are rumors. They have not been substantiated, that Sirino is being difficult at Kaizer Chiefs. Sirino apparently, allegedly, is faking injuries not to play. But then also, when they say that when he does play, he seems to be going against what the coach is saying. Now, we know this is our media who are reporting this, so we have to take it with a pinch of salt, the stories that come out from there. But this is very sad. I'll start off with just needing Sirino. I think Sirino has been a breath of fresh air at Kaizer Chiefs. I think Sirino has brought about a thinking, a brain that we have needed at Kaizer Chiefs when in build-up, when playing, when going forward. He is the heart of that attack, and he's the reason why players are getting clear-cut opportunities most of the time. Him with his supporting cast, are doing an incredible job in the attack of Kaizer Chiefs. Now, you could point to a couple of weaknesses. Defensively, he is a liability. Defensively, he does leave cross in no man's land when we speak about having to defend. There are things that Ukhosh Nabi would have to fix. But I think this story worries me because it's a continual pattern of something that I brought up when we were speaking early about Gaston Sirino possibly joining in Kaizer Chiefs. For those who have been following me for a while, you know how I feel about former Mamelodi Sundowns players, former big players coming to Kaizer Chiefs, and where Kaizer Chiefs sits in their priority list. I have often pointed to players like Abo Toli, Abo Biliat, who gave us some performances. I'm not going to try and make it seem like it was all bad. But for the most part, they didn't live up to the billing that we gave them, that we wanted to bring these players in because they're experienced, they come from a functional side, they look great, they're amazing, they're going to bring up the level of the Kaizer Chiefs. And my big criticism of players who come from there is that a lot of them come to Kaizer Chiefs at a point in their lives where they've done the hard work. They've had to play at Sundowns, where you've had to be a team player, where you've had to, toe the line, where you're in and amongst other stars, where there's competition. I mean, Sirino, for him to land at Kaizer Chiefs is because he wasn't getting playing time at Mamelodi Sundowns, and of course, his relationship with the head coach at the time, right? So a lot of these players, when they land at Kaizer Chiefs, they come from that sort of environment, and also an environment where you don't have a celebrity factor. And maybe that is one of the biggest advantages that Mamelodi Sundowns may have in our football, in that they're big, they're rich, they've got money, they're doing all those things. But because they don't have that celebrity factor, the players don't develop big heads. So by the time they get to Kaizer Chiefs, and by the time they experience the coverage, the love, the noise, the celebrity factor of the Kaizer Chiefs, number one, you get there and you are now inflated. You haven't had to deal with this. And maybe now you realize that your celebrity status outweighs what performances you have to bring to the team. So I no longer have to be a 5-star, 10 out of 10 player, similar to what I was at Mamelodi Sundowns. I just have to give some good performances here and there. My salary is done. I don't need to worry about bonuses and all of that stuff. My base salary is already allegedly very high. Forget about bonuses. Where I would be shouted at, or we'd have a tough time after losing and all of that, this team might look at me and say, oh man, you've tried so hard. Don't worry about the 3 points or winning the league or winning the trophies. We are building, we care more about the type of play that you're bringing here. And of course, this is not just a critique on Sirino because that story is building. It's more about, the relationship with the club. So we're speaking about the celebrity factor. We're speaking about the fact that you don't need results like that. We're speaking to the fact that you are, in a sense, bigger than the club. A lot of Sundowns players, when they leave that place, you've won the leagues back to back to back to back to back. You've played in the Champions Leagues over and over. You've gone far in those competitions, right? You've made it into national teams most of the time, right? You are head and shoulders above a lot of players in the league in terms of your abilities, where you rank next to these guys, right? So sometimes when they get to Kaizer Chiefs, and I don't want Chiefs fans to read me wrong here, when they get to Kaizer Chiefs, they come with that thing that you need me. I can act out and act however I want. I can gain weight. I can be injured most of the time. I can be all of those things. But you must remember that it feels like I am doing Chiefs a favor. And what that does is when they get into the team, it influences everybody else to start doing things. Already we've had our disciplinary problems at Kaizer Chiefs, we know. And maybe the broader conversation is to look at Kaizer Chiefs and say, how are you allowing players to do these things? We know about the Kune situation, for example. We know about the alleged situations with Abom Tanzane and their behavior and subsequent punishments at Kaizer Chiefs. So is this not a replay of some of the things we've seen? And I think if it is true, again, if it is true, I am disappointed because this transformation happened very quick. He came in, he was doing his job. Then now, if this is what's happening and he has to be benched because of these things or punished, it leaves a sour taste in my mouth. But then the bigger question becomes, what is happening with player management at Kaizer Chiefs that these players get there and they start acting differently behind closed doors, but then more importantly, the performances on the pitch, they start lacking for them. And what do you do in order to change and make sure that these star players that you're bringing in toe the line? Or there is a line, or there is a way to keep them in check, because if there isn't, it's going to be another situation where we're sitting at Kaizer Chiefs with a bunch of players who were once great players, and it's not just former Sundowns players, but were once great players who are getting into an age and time in their lives where they're not going to give us more than. And if this is year one of, let's say, a 3-year contract, hey, we have a long way to go. But let's hope that this is all just sensationalism and this is our media trying to find a story where there isn't one. Let's hope. And hopefully we can get back on track as the Kaizer Chiefs and continue this project that Coach Nabi has brought into the team. The last thing I want to speak about is the FIFA Club World Cup. And I don't want to dwell too much on the draw and all of those things. I think the draw actually made me look at the Club World Cup a little bit differently. Now, when you speak about the Club World Cup, you speak about the 12 teams from Europe and the 32 teams overall from across the world, and you kind of make it seem like, it sounds like it's a little bit unfair. But when you actually see how it panned out, and you're seeing about Benfica, and you're seeing generally how it's been spread out, I think it's a lot more competitive than I would have thought when it was announced. With all of the teams, I still have an issue with having so many European teams in there. But yeah, it is what it is. They also apparently can't meet until the semi-finals as European teams. So they're trying to make sure that, again, they jimmy the Club World Cup system to try and make sure the European teams are through. If you think about the previous format, the European teams would really, the team that won the Champions League, the UEFA Champions League, would only arrive in the semis. They'd parachute them in. And by that time, the other teams that have made it to the semis have played 2-3 games, 2-3 high-intensity games versus very good competition. And not only are they now tired and all of that stuff, now you have to face the European teams. But that besides that, I think it was great. If we look at the African teams, I think barring, outside of Iwit Casablanca, we as Africa got a good draw. ES Tunis can be competitive in their team, in their side. I think Al Ahly can do the business with Inter Miami. Yes, Messi's there, but I don't think the quality of Inter Miami is that strong. So you could see Al Ahly making it out of that group. But I want to speak. Oh, and then with that, of course, Shem, Juventus. Hey. Juventus and Man City, that's going to be very interesting. But I want to first start with Mamelodi Sundowns. Very, very interesting. Mamelodi Sundowns, of course, finds themselves in a group with Ulsan HD, a Korean team. They're also with Ifluminense, a team that is very famous. They became famous for that game versus Man City in the other Club World Cup tournament, where they sort of outpassed City. They were building out from the back. City was trying to press, but they were breaking the press. Did they win? No, but they looked like a very scary team. And then, of course, you have Dortmund, which is, I mean, they're the guys that were playing the most recent finalists in the UEFA Champions League. They're the team that Real Madrid beat to win the Champions League. So that already speaks volumes of where Dortmund is. Of course, we know the history of Dortmund. So they're, of course, the biggest team there. But the most interesting thing about this draw is not very many places where we get to see Mamelodi Sundowns be the smaller team, where we get to see Mamelodi Sundowns be the Makesi of the tournament, right? Where nobody's expecting too much from them. You can even see in the coverage of Mamelodi Sundowns with Diashota, man. They feel like that team that was added on the report, the article released by FIFA itself after the draw. They used Coach Rulani, head coach of Mamelodi Sundowns, and his quotes about Wydad Casablanca, him speaking about his Wydad team, but they put it in the party of Mamelodi Sundowns. Yay! It was a mess, man, and you could tell that they're an afterthought. And being an afterthought poses a couple of questions. Number one, it's a very big opportunity. So can Mamelodi Sundowns take advantage of the opportunity of being the unknown team? Quote unquote. Last time they played this tournament was in 2016. So being the unknown team, the smaller team, the team that people look over, that sometimes gives you the edge because it's hard to prepare for those type of teams, number one, and it's hard to take them seriously. You can ask Mamelodi Sundowns themselves when they took on Imakesi, that maybe they thought in their heads that it's a foregone conclusion that they've won this tournament and played a little bit relaxed, only to be shocked by Imakesi. And I'm sorry, Mamelodi Sundowns fans, to bring it up again, but it's a very good comparison. Can Sundowns play versus Ulsan and get a result? Can they play versus the Fluminense team and get a result? Can they play versus Dortmund? And, I don't think they're going to win that game. I know it's still months away, but I don't think they're going to win that game. But can they maybe squeak something that shows that South African football and Mamelodi Sundowns is actually a team to be reckoned with, number one. Number two, how are they going to play? The Club World Cup will now happen every 4 years. So we're almost guaranteed that the Sundowns team that plays this year is going to be wildly different than the one that plays in 4 years' time, in terms of the players, in terms of the coaching even. I don't know if Coach Mangoba is going to make it 4 years from now. You may have a little bit of a cushion to say that Mamelodi Sundowns figures in the semi-finals so much that if you look at the points tallies, they will always be one of the top 4 teams in Africa. They'll always be there. So you could argue that they will make it into this tournament every time. But that brings into question then how they approach this tournament. Do you play a defensive game? So do you sit back and maybe try and be pragmatic? You're not going to have the ball. You're going to be playing versus better players. So let's sit back and defend, basically. Let's sit back and see if we can't catch them on the counter on the break. Let's sit back and see if we can't take the damage on, right? Let's see if we can't take the damage on and go from there. which is interesting because Mamelodi Sundowns doesn't play that football normally. So you could ask if that is going to be a smart thing to do, owing to the fact that you're not used to that football, or do you go out and just play your game? Mamelodi Sundowns under Coach Mangoba is a direct team. They're a team that wants to make box entries. They want to commit people forward. They want to catch you on the counter a lot quicker, but also have the ability to hold possession. The Rulani heritage is holding the ball. Williams is comfortable with the ball. Obas is growing into that role. Hopefully Kutsia will be back. That'll be far more interesting. You have players like Abomudi, Babo Alenda who can control a game. So do you go out to try win the ball back and then frustrate the other team? Maybe get them into an area where they're thinking, how are we not playing versus the smaller teams, similar to what Fluminense did? Which is probably your best bet, also knowing that it's going to be 4 years until you come back to this tournament. Do they shoot their shot fully here? Those are all, I think, very interesting questions, and I think we'll know a little bit more as we go forward and we get closer to the actual tournament. But yeah, I would love Mamelodi Sundowns to make a statement at that tournament. I would love some of the players to make a statement and maybe find themselves moving. Think about what playing in a Club World Cup could do for a player like Ulithaku, Abomapena. Think about where they could go from there. I know the other guys are a little bit later in their careers and older, but I'm looking at those youngsters and thinking, this is a great chance. I'm looking at even some of the senior players and thinking, look, if you want to escape Africa, that would be a best shot. And it may not be to the top teams, but it may be to teams that are significant enough to give you a pay rise, to give you that exposure for the next few years. You know, so I'm expecting them to go hard there. But for me, the biggest thing that's coming out of this is the Wydad draw, because like I said, Wydad is going to be in a group with Juventus and Man City. And that means that Coach Rulani is going to meet his idol. He's going to meet his mentor from afar. Coach Pep Rulani is going to be playing versus Coach Pep Guardiola, which I think, I don't even want to go into the games and the golf in class and all of that stuff. I just want to think about how incredible this is, that the Club World Cup is allowing this. And I think that's the beauty of this tournament and the rebrand of the tournament, and the restructure of the tournament, that now Coach Rulani can go and play versus the heroes, can go and play meaningful football. And this is where the move that Coach Rulani made to Wydad sort of made sense. Because number one, Wydad is not in the CAF Champions League this year, so he's going to get a year where he's going to get to work with the team without necessarily having the pressure of going out to have to win the Champions League. He's going to play in the league. Obviously, there's pressure in the league, but it's less games, it's less travel, it's less of a lot of things where you can sit down and work with the team. But the biggest advantage was, if you're leaving Mamelodi Sundowns, the team that is qualified for the Club World Cup, it helps you to join a team that is playing in the Club World Cup, and that is what Wydad is giving Rulani a chance to do. And while a lot of us questioned Coach Rulani moving to Wydad, saying that maybe it's the kiss of death, seeing where Coach Pitso ended up, even when he moved to the biggest team in the continent, Ahly, and won the Champions League with that team, I believe it was twice, and how it didn't help him get out. Maybe this Club World Cup presents a chance for Rulani to really put himself out there, to really give him a chance to go and coach in the biggest leagues, coach the biggest teams, coach in there, even if it means that he's a set-piece coach for some of these coaches. But the fact that Pep Guardiola is going to leave that game thinking, wow, I played against that African coach who did amazingly, let's say. Wow, some of the systems that guy was bringing up could maybe help him going forward, maybe getting an endorsement from Pep Guardiola. But then also knowing that Man City is one of the bigger European teams taking part in this Club World Cup. So maybe, even from that point of view alone, that a lot of eyes are going to be on this Manchester City. And you know that America hosting this thing and FIFA trying to make at least the inaugural one big, is going to be plenty of coverage. So it represents a chance for Coach Rulani to really prove that he is one of the brightest coaches in Africa, to prove that maybe he deserves to be in Europe. Could even be one for Manqoba, to show that man, not only did I win the MTN 8 in 2008, but I went to the Club World Cup and I showed some teams flames. Who knows what that means for his career? As we know, coaching is a long-term career. So many opportunities, but I am just so happy that Coach Rulani will get to face Pep. Guys, if you follow Coach Rulani, you know that his Instagram stories are mostly to do with Pep Guardiola. Quotes, tactics, breakdowns, press conferences. So yeah, even we did. They did a video showing his reaction to getting drawn with Man City specifically. So good luck to Coach Rulani, good luck to Coach Manqoba, good luck to Sundowns, Esperance, Ahly and Wydad as they go and represent Africa in the Club World Cup. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Remember, like, subscribe, share, follow, comment, everything you can do to help us creators grow. It's been incredible. I'll see you guys on the next one.